My name is Shannon. We are taking this opportunity to do a slightly more formal presentation that sort of lays out some of what we've got going on and what we like to talk about because we are going to expand. We are currently in Madison on Monona Drive, and we have some colleagues and compatriots who have expressed desire to have ketamine available in their more rural sort of satellite communities. And so we are launching this sort of process to be able to bring 1 day a week ketamine to both Watertown communities and Sauk City area. This is part of a greater process to try and do more outreach and connect with folks and explain a little bit more about what ketamine is, how it works, and also what you might notice are some of the differences between some of the ketamine clinics, because there are a number of ketamine clinics in Madison. There aren't a lot in smaller communities, and we're not all the same. So again, please let me know if you have any questions. We are Capital Ketamine. We've been around since 2021. I believe, we're the second ketamine clinic in Madison. And our goals from beginning was to provide this incredible treatment and make it available to the populations that could use it the most. And that has been a journey because it has not stayed the same. That being said, treatment has roughly stayed the same, that the research, even the continued research, continues to show the same kinds of benefits with the same kinds of protocols. But the things that have become more important, the things that people have caught on to, is how much of a breadth there really is to this treatment and how best patient care, best options really includes a real comprehensive view of the treatment. So it's not just plugging in a treatment, heading home, seeing how it works, and letting us know in 6 weeks kind of thing. So Capital Ketamine comes to ketamine clinic from a background of emergency medicine, therapy, and sort of the interstitial between those. All of us who are involved in Capital Ketamine have family history of suicide, depression, anxiety, PTSD. We have very strong aim towards folks who are in emergency response and the stresses of incredible, crazy society these days. And so we came at it knowing that just treating it like a treatment was not going to be enough, and just treating it like an augment to therapy was not going to be enough. So we try to not only take the very robust research world of data that suggests and shows that not only is ketamine sort of the beginning of the psychedelic renaissance and the psychedelic plant medicines, but also that ketamine is unique. It has different things to offer than the other psychedelic medicines. In some ways, it's kind of an intro to a lot of the sort of brain developing psychedelic medicines that are going on these days. And of course, it is the one that is most available and most legal because ketamine is FDA approved since 1970. It is widely used as an anesthetic. It is on the World Health Organization's list of essential medications. And it is primarily used, and of course, FDA approved, as an anesthetic, which means at high doses, it sort of puts your brain to sleep, pauses everything, including your awareness and your consciousness. At lower doses, which is what we are using for this therapeutic process, it activates your brain and it sort of lights up the experience and sensor in your brain and has your brain working very hard and very intensely, and it is developing and growing new dendritic pathways, new dendritic connections within your brain. So it is increasing brain plasticity as well as bringing you an experience that is often profound, often uncovering things in your psyche, sometimes unlocking doors that have previously been clamped shut, whether because of the trauma response, because of our development, because of developed maladaptive patterns, etc. So ketamine can really break the cycle in a lot of ways that can be really incredibly helpful. It's also incredibly unique, and so it's very different from each for each individual person, which makes it a more complex treatment, as you can probably imagine, than trying an SSRI that adjusts levels of a positive hormone or enzyme in your brain and then seeing how the elevated levels of serotonin or norepinephrine do for you. Ketamine is working in a very different way, and it is creating an opportunity to do more work in very different ways. So, treatment looks like 6 sessions, 6 40-minute infusions within 6 weeks. Ketamine has a cumulative layering nature, and so one does not do it. Unfortunately, if somebody is looking for treatment with ketamine, especially for treatment with mental health, a loading series, a layering process is pretty imperative. You can't really expect to get benefits until you've completed your 6 session loading series. Do some people feel a difference and have a massive change in their mental health and well-being after less than 6 sessions? Absolutely. However, to really lock it in, to really get to sort of graduate to the new level or platform of normal, of potential um, healing, it is really pretty important to do 6 sessions and to keep them in relatively quick succession so that you can build on that layer and not, if you put too much space in between, you're building, but then you drop down and then you have to build again. And so you keep covering the same ground. So protocol is pretty important in terms of the medicine, in terms of the treatment. Boosters, on the other hand, which is sort of maintenance after that loading series, is entirely individual. This is one of the places where clinics differ. Some places will put you on a regimented cycle. That's great for their bottom line. That's great for making sure that no regression ever happens. But it's usually very expensive and not necessarily in the best interest of the patient. So that sort of lays out the basics, the research basis for what we're doing. We intentionally are a bridge between the ways that ketamine is normally or widespread available. We didn't realize that we were the bridge until we started learning more about what other ketamine treatments were about. But in general, to the best of our knowledge, there are many practices that are led by medical professionals who, in fact, let me get smaller and get out of your way a little bit more so that you can see more of the slides. But in general, most places that are doing treatment are focusing on the treatment as if the treatment can stand alone, as if the treatment can do its job without the addition of therapeutic support. And then there are also therapists, offices, some particular therapists who aim towards doing an integrated ketamine assisted psychotherapy. Shorthand is KAP. And again, to the best of our knowledge, that is a little bit focused on the experiential that the ketamine offers and less about the physical and mental and neurological changes that are happening. So both of those schools of thought lose out on each other, if I'm being sort of as simple as possible. That there is a lot to be gained by the medical treatment approach, and there is a lot to be gained by the therapeutic approach. Very rarely is a clinic or provider able to do both of those things. For the most part, clinics that do the treatment are focusing on the treatment. They aren't able to give scaffolding and support in terms of therapy, in terms of integration, in terms of set and setting and building preparation techniques and process techniques, support resources as well as materials, as well as people. And then therapy, the KAP model often doesn't capitalize on the treatment itself, that the focus is more on bringing in a ketamine session either every once in a while or with flexible timing in order to boost or bolster the therapeutic process when it makes sense for therapy, to have a ketamine experience that's kind of a mental door opening experience within the greater framework of working on whatever issues you're currently working on. That is fabulous, but again, it it leaves behind capitalizing on that cumulative nature of ketamine, and it only gives you one little chunk, little bite out of what the ketamine can do in terms of addressing symptoms of depression, PTSD, anxiety, ADHD, OCD, all of the things. So we have tried to the best of our ability, and granted, I don't want to misrepresent and say that we are suggesting that anybody is doing this wrong. What I am trying to express is that every place is limited. Every place can do what they can do. There's not a lot of money in this treatment or in this therapy. And so there's a real lack of ability as well as awareness on being able to build everything together and really create a comprehensive and collaborative environment, a holistic treatment process that really capitalizes on all elements for the betterment of the maximum number of patients. So we are doing our best to bridge those gaps. We are led by a very robust, highly trained expert medical team, people who are not only emergency medicine and critical care trained in nursing, NPs, PAs, and an emergency physician, our medical director. But we also take an approach that we need to be holistically taking care of the patient throughout this treatment process, not just the treatment in our clinic, but also throughout the treatment process. So that includes making sure that our well-trained nurses who are ACLS certified, along with our airway providers who are on site at all time, are not only capable of taking care of any emergency that would pop up, which granted is not likely to happen because ketamine is an incredibly safe medicine. One of the reasons it's on the World Health Organization's list of essential medications. It plays well in the sandbox with others. It doesn't interact with many other medicines. It also doesn't interact with many other conditions, making it a very safe treatment for a large, large amount of the population. In addition, we have a staff that is trained for any emergencies that do pop up, even when they're unrelated, especially when they're unrelated to ketamine. But even if they are related to ketamine, they are right there. They are, in fact, right there in the room, which is not apparently the normal situation for ketamine clinics. Most ketamine clinics will say that they monitor throughout the session, but they generally are monitoring with cameras and vitals machines, but remotely. So they are in another room watching several patients at a time, several rooms at a time, potentially, or sometimes they're in a room with several patients at once. All of that is definitely a positive way to give this treatment, but especially for folks who have a strugglesome experience, who are dealing with trauma, who are dealing with some intense experiences and intense symptoms, we find that for our patients, having somebody in the room, having somebody there not only to keep an eye on those monitors in the room, but also to be able to take a hand if somebody is reaching out, to be able to whisper in your ear, I'm right here with you. I've got you. You're doing great. Keep going. I've got you. You're safe. Those are incredibly, incredibly helpful for this treatment. In addition, we have a network of therapists that we partner with who are either ketamine trained and certified in either ketamine or psychedelic integration, psychedelic facilitation. They are at least ketamine friendly, and they have either done their own ketamine journey or they have done a lot of research and a lot of training in ketamine. They're very interested in ketamine. They're very welcoming and interested in this process, etc. We also do have 2 integration coaches on staff. To be very clear, they are not therapists. They do not have mental health licenses. They are people who are incredibly well trained and well informed in psychedelics. So their dreams and goals are in psychedelic medicine, and they have gone through extensive training in psychedelic facilitation, psychedelic integration. That allows us to offer integration coaching at a price, be it out of pocket, that is approachable and oftentimes much more affordable for our patients than out-of-pocket psychotherapy, given that out-of-pocket psychotherapy without insurance can get really pricey for some of these folks. But it doesn't replace it. It is, however, one of the layers, one of the steps that we think is really important to be able to give our patients scaffolding and support. We, in fact, offer in-house integration, and we make one session completely free to our patients. We are sort of making it almost a mandatory part of the process because we keep hearing from patients over and over, I wish I took your advice and had started integration right when I started ketamine. It would have really helped. I wouldn't have gotten so confused or stressed out now that I'm on session 4 and I'm feeling confused and unsettled and not sure what I should be doing to maximize this experience. And so more and more we are sort of going ahead and scheduling them for that first session, usually right after, within 72 hours or so of their first ketamine session. We also really prioritize the comfort of the patient. And so we, more than any other clinic we know, have very comfortable, non-clinical feeling rooms and spaces. But we do have a crash cart and a full, sort of emergency setup right outside the door. But we have warmed blankets, we have relaxing recliners or chaises. We have art on the walls. We have plants often in the rooms. We have noise canceling headphones with curated playlists, including even guided visualization kinds of resources. We have eye masks and worry stones and stress balls and crystals and all kinds of things to make someone have the resources that might be useful during this potentially relaxing and blissful, potentially exciting and kind of wild and crazy experience of their ketamine session. We also have individual rooms for each patient with a critical care nurse in the room with each patient one-on-one during their 40-minute infusion. We also require folks to stay longer after for sort of recovery and be able to either snooze a little if that's what their body is requiring. We have snacks for as your appetite is coming back and as you're potentially feeling a little bit of nausea, etc. So indeed, in addition to all of those things that we offer in terms of sort of leaning into the therapeutic nature of this medical treatment, we also offer a lot of preparation ahead of time. Apparently, most of the consultations that are available are 15 minutes or so. We've had several patients mention that they feel a little bit like a sales pitch or something like that. And we are intentionally making the consultation an opportunity for education, an opportunity for preparation for this, as I've mentioned, very comprehensive and active treatment. This isn't a passive treatment where somebody kind of gets to plug in and then just say, hey, when am I going to feel different? This is something that requires not only effort from our part as the practitioner, but it also requires a lot of effort on the part of the patient. So we want to make sure that we are making that clear, that we are describing not only what they can expect, but also what appropriate expectations are, what the limitations and mysteries of this treatment and how it affects everybody differently might be, but also giving them resources for research, giving them tools to share with their loved ones so that their loved ones can support them through this process. We recommend and strongly, strongly advise that they either start therapy if they have not currently been in therapy, or we encourage them to increase the timing of their therapy if they are in therapy so that they have the opportunity to talk through these things with their therapist more frequently than they necessarily do in regular life, because sometimes this can bring up stuff. It doesn't always, but having that resource available, having that option to talk through, even feeling confused and even frustrated with the process can be absolutely immeasurably helpful. And so we want to make that really clear. We don't want to be saying, come on in, we're going to take care of you. You'll leave feeling great, no problem. Everything's taken care of. Do you know what I mean? This is a much more in-depth and much more comprehensive process. We give everybody a journal. It's nothing special. Here, I'm going to put it in front of my face so you can actually see it. This is just a little notebook. We include resources on this front page for emergency numbers, emergency departments, crisis lines, hotlines, treatment facility finders, etc. We think that having these immediately available is really, really important. And then this journal is nothing special. It's just a little booklet of lined paper. But the whole point is that it takes the barrier out of one of the most researched improvements to this treatment is journaling through the process. Research shows that journaling and therapy are pretty incredibly helpful because processing in between is absolutely paramount. Ongoing, but also in an acute way to process specifically what comes up in each session, what the sessions are like, just navigate the path through the sessions and how different they can be, and how sometimes you feel so invested that even when you have a session that is a lull or feels a little bit boring or disappointing, it feels really intense. And so we want to be able to support and scaffold through those sort of processes and struggles. For folks who are particularly dealing with combinations of either symptoms or diagnoses or behaviors that make some of these things difficult or challenging. In the case, for example, where folks are dealing with struggles with addiction or addictive behavior, oftentimes with folks who need extra accountability, extra understanding of expectations and trajectory, we will make independent and individual, that's what I mean, treatment agreements, signed contracts where we lay out what is expected of the patient, what is expected of us, what they can expect from us, how we manage those things. It includes, cancellation policies, as well as what support they can expect from us, what we expect them to do. If they haven't seen their therapist in between, then we may, pause or postpone treatment, those kinds of treatment agreements to make sure that we're doing our best to set everybody up for success. And sometimes that includes a little bit of sometimes tough love, sometimes laying some boundaries, sometimes laying out some really clear expectations and accountability. Treatment homework, yep. Preparation techniques, absolutely. And as well as a journaling guide that is just a resource for if someone would like help, if they're not sure what they want to be writing about. We have suggestions, not an assignment. It's sort of a offering. And then a treatment guide. So that we're actually putting together currently, which is a study guide almost for the 90-minute consultation and covers a lot of information, covers a lot of questions that they may have after. This right side of the screen covers a lot of things that I already mentioned. It also mentions that we do some assessments each time the patient comes in. PHQ-9s and GAD-7s every single time everyone comes in. Like I said, we have the referral guide, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, yes, and we are always available. We're always available not only to every patient's care team, including their therapist, psychiatrist, et cetera, but also to them. They know that they can reach us via email. Our nurse care manager and clinical manager, Chris, does a lot to make himself available over the phone. He is there for every single day that we're doing this. And so he gets to connect with every single patient. And that continuity has been something that has changed for us since the beginning, that continuity we found really incredibly important. And so that was something that we prioritized making possible. That, in another way, is a sacrifice that we made financially to make better care available to our patients. Speaking of financials, as Hopefully, many of you already know, but if you don't, ketamine is expensive. It is technically very cheap, meaning that the medicine itself is generic. It is a cheap vial of medicine. However, all of the scaffolding, all of the support, all of the personnel, all of the overhead, all of the effort is very, very expensive. We charge about the same as most other IV ketamine clinics. They don't offer most of the rest of what we offer. And so our assumption is that they are able to make some money off of this, and that's how they are able to stay afloat. We have other things going on that kind of assist us and keep the lights on. We are in the process of converting Capital Ketamine into a 501(c)(3) that will ideally make us more eligible for treatment grants to get more treatment accessible to more underserved populations, as well as programs that we can ideally plug into, like a program, for example, called Thank You Life, which is a grant program for treatment accessibility, those kinds of things. Also, research, it just makes us a little bit more facile for really reaching and treating patients as much as possible. Because one of the biggest barriers to this treatment is the financials. Unfortunately, ketamine is FDA approved as an anesthetic. For this treatment, for mental health treatment, the FDA has dragged its feet in approving it for this particular off-label use of the medicine. That one of my soapboxes is that probably part of that is because there's no pharmaceutical company who can make money off of ketamine. It's generic, and so there is no pressure to approve it and make it available and make it covered by insurance. Insurance is another thing that I can get on a soapbox about, that insurance companies exist to cover the cost of medical care. Their entire goal, however, is to not cover the cost of medical care. So insurances also are dragging their feet in making this available and covered by in their network of offerings and benefits. We do everything we can to make it as accessible as possible. That includes being FSA and HSA eligible. We do have and give our patients all resources that we can find for small grants. Taffy, Wisconsin is one, for example. We are trying to gather more. Thank You Life, for example. We work with one of those medical credit cards that we believe has less predatory practices than Care Credit and some of those kinds of things. If somebody already has Care Credit, we do accept it. We can take it, but we don't try to sell it because we don't love their practices. They have deferred interest. If you're unfamiliar, they have deferred interest, and that interest is deferred as long as you follow all the rules and do exactly right and pay it off by the end of the term. If you make one mistake, then all of that interest is swamped back into your total, and then you have, an additional 21% or something crazy like that. The card that we work with is not deferred. It is just 15 months of zero interest for whatever purchases you have on the card. The card is a Discover card that only works at certain medical facilities. And then after that 15 months, then you get charged interest on your remaining balance, not your initial balance. So we find it less predatory, like I said, but I would be lying if I didn't say that the interest rate that they choose is mighty high. But if somebody needs to pay over time, that can make it doable. We have done enough sort of legwork to find the one that might offer the best option. We also will provide super bills. We make those by hand every session for every patient. We have worked with a couple of coders. We've worked with activists and a person who is working very hard to try and get ketamine accessible and covered by insurance. And so we've done a lot of legwork with hiring coders for consultation, as well as Alan, as well as doing a deep dive in this and spending a couple thousand hours on creating super bills that ideally get reimbursed, have the best chance of being reimbursed by private insurance. We also can provide letters of medical necessity, and if somebody wants to try to get reimbursement from their insurance, we will sort of give them a packet of what they can do and what steps they can follow. And work with them to do that. We unfortunately cannot work directly with insurances. Insurances make it pretty impossible, and we're not able to hire someone exclusively to work with insurance and bill insurance. And most insurances will not allow us to be in-network providers with them. So we do what we can. We also give out of our own coffers, we give specialty, pretty deep discounts for both first responders, which includes police, fire, EMS, as well as ER staff, and military and veteran discounts. Those are $100 per session, and each session is $475. We also have bundles that, out of convenience, allow you to bundle and get about a 10% discount, but it is not a commitment. Just putting that out there. If you buy a bundle, you are not therefore sunk in, and that money is ours. If somebody had to cancel for some reason and needed that reimbursed or refunded, we would charge the sessions they've had at full price, unfortunately, because the bundle is going away. But we would, of course, absolutely and immediately refund any of the remainder. We've done that several times when somebody's had to move out of town, or, something catastrophic happens in their lives and they need to put that money towards something else. We are trying to make things accessible and do things to make things convenient and accessible, not ever to make things more financially difficult or inaccessible for people. Some of our core tenets are safety above all, and then transparency, collaboration, and innovation, are sort of the four things that we like to lean into throughout our mission and practices. Empowered patients are our best patients. They get the best outcomes. They feel an ownership over their own treatment and their own process, which we find immeasurably helpful. They feel invested and feel like they can carry it into the future. And therefore, we have patients with lasting change that they feel empowered to keep going with, and they don't feel, thankfully, at the mercy of the treatment, that they need us to be able to guide them through this process. We don't want them reliant on this treatment. We want them to have this as a tool in their toolbox, but not to be their only tool, and not us have, government over it for them. We are always available for recommendations, for transparency, for talking through, when they think they might want to come back for a booster. We're there to listen and give them our feedback, give them our best guesses. Oh, another resource that we have started to implement, and that I spent lots and lots of hours trying to find the right tool for, is offering a tracker, sort of a emotion experience, how are you doing today kind of tracker. We let everybody know that it is really important that they keep track of how they're doing, so that when those signals are available, they are able to notice them sooner than later. We find this especially helpful for folks who don't love therapy for whatever reason, whether they've had a bad experience or they just haven't found the right fit, or the stigma, they don't lean towards it. Whatever the case, we have found that this can be really helpful. And we actually find that through this process, when they're having a really hard time, they start to be more interested in therapy, in talking it through, in finding resources and tools through the tough parts and the tough times. But that we found one app that does what I love it to do. It's called How We Feel. It's a little rainbow heart, and it's developed by psychotherapists. It's free and it's very simple. It just lets you can do more with it, but ultimately, at its most basic is exactly what I wanted it to do, which is you go to a screen and you get to say, I'm feeling positive energized, negative energized, um, uh, positive relaxed, or negative relaxed, or low energy. And then you get all of these descriptors that you get to choose from. And you just pick one and then it saves it and you get to move on with your day. And then it gets to give you a mosaic of, oh, look, for 6 days now, I've been feeling low energy and pretty negative. Interesting, those kinds of things. So anyway, um, that also leans us towards to collaborative care. We want to be a part of somebody's comprehensive care team. We don't think that any part of medicine should be on its own, including nutrition, including exercise, including preventative medicines, including emergency care, all of it. Ideally, we think the tumor board is kind of the best model of medicine that people with different expertise, with different passions, get to weigh in on what we're all seeing in this patient and what might be best for them moving forward, and also give them a seat at the table for their own care. So we love communicating with therapists. We have ROIs that we send and receive, and we have general emails that several of us can answer if you have general questions. We have private emails that we are very open about sharing. We have work cell phone numbers that we're also happy to share. We try to be reachable as much as possible. We also, create our boundaries as people need to, but in general, we really try to make ourselves available and lean into collaboration because we think that can only help patients is when you have multiple people who have a vested interest in your health and they are able to collaborate and connect about what helps improve your mental and physical health in an ongoing way. We are expanding. The last slide mentioned. This is our building in Monona. It is a crazy looking, wild and woolly building. We are on the fourth floor of that building, so we have a beautiful view of over Monona, and we can see the lake. We can see right now all of the trees budding, and in summer it's all green and gorgeous. This building is owned by Tellurian Mental Health, and so there is lots of resources in the building. There's an insurance provider. There are lots of individual therapists. There are Tellurian outpatient services. We also the back of our building abuts the Woodland Park and Aldo Leopold Nature Center. So in addition to the regular treatments that we have where you can get just a treatment and then come in and have a ketamine session, head home and relax the rest of your day. We also have developed a retreat model where folks who have had ketamine in the past, it's not appropriate for first timers, but especially for boosters, it can be really helpful. We've adapted and developed a retreat model where we bring in, and we also have regularly massage therapists, Reiki practitioners, acupuncturists, yoga practitioners, Tibetan healing sound bowl players, integrationists, and facilitators. And we have sort of a day of a couple different styles where you can do your own individual sessions and then come together for an integration circle and a nourishing lunch and have breakout sessions, or you can even do your ketamine session together in sort of a group setting that is ideally and intentionally lending itself towards togetherness, towards creating community, towards sharing a profound experience. And one of the things that is included in that retreat day is going for a nature walk outside in the afternoon once everybody's stable. And we have had a lot of great response to that for a lot of people, it is difficult to relax and get themselves in a headspace that allows for some of the ketamine to really take hold and do its job. And so those support services and scaffolding can be really, really beneficial. And for certain people, it really works even better than just coming in for the treatment. So we are expanding in terms of the retreats, but we are also expanding in terms of our geographical outreach. Like I said in the beginning, this presentation is a piece of this expansion that we have a partner, a sister clinic that does some of the other stuff that our other clinic does, IV hydration, nutrition, um, aesthetics, those kinds of things. Those are the things that keep our lights on and allow Capital Ketamine to be a non-profitable business, and yet our priority to bring the treatment to populations. We are partnering with another clinic like that so that we can utilize their space and bring ketamine to Sauk City and the surrounding areas. That will be every week on Wednesday, starting early April. We are having a open house in Sauk City at that clinic to be able to meet and greet, talk through what's going on, what it looks like, have people visit and ask questions and learn more. So the open house for Sauk City is April 22nd, and the open house for Watertown, which is one of our satellite locations, our Badger State Hydrate Clinic has a satellite location in Watertown. And we just expanded that location. Part of the intention was to be able to bring ketamine and Capital Ketamine in partner out there. So we will be doing that on Thursdays, and we have that open house on April 30th. Then basically the following week, we start in Sauk, and then again the following week, we start in Watertown. So we are ideally holding the consultations and getting those patients set up ahead of time. And then by the time we are open in early May, we hope to have folks who are ready to start treatment in those locations. Again, that is going to be the same clinical director who is there at those locations. And so there's a real opportunity for continuity of care that we're really pretty excited about. So this last page is a little small, so I will potentially put this in an email and send it out as a follow-up. But ultimately, one of the things that we have heard from a lot of patients, as well as a lot of therapeutic practitioners and wellness folks, is that because the ketamine clinics are so different, there isn't transparency and there isn't understood expectations about what is included and what that particular clinic offers. So we put together this sort of our advice of questions that folks should be asking their ketamine clinics or ketamine clinics when they are looking to receive treatment. This includes lots of questions about what is included, what is offered, what resources are available, etc. It includes questions about dosage and how clinics deal with dosage. It includes having a practitioner in the room. It includes offers of integration counseling, safety protocols, what patient preparation and techniques are like, what support resources are like, what not only medical and nausea and sort of topical things are included in the treatment, but also what ripples of support are included. And then what financial resources are available and what schedule folks adhere to for boosters. We have our answers are on this page, and from everything that we have learned about not only the process of ketamine, but also the how treatment works in general, we have found that we are committed to sort of being best in class in a lot of these ways. Not that other clinics aren't doing some of these things as well, but most of them won't do all of these things. This is a pretty comprehensive list, and most clinics will lean one way or the other, have some versus others, etc. One last thing that I wanted to mention that I did not mention earlier, and sort of pertains to this dosage question, first question on this list, is about the ketamine treatment itself. That ketamine, like I said, is a generic medicine. It is liquid form in general, and it has a variety of ways that is possible to administer it. You could administer it in a lozenge or troche. You can administer it in a nasal spray. There's also a different molecule that has been patented and FDA approved for mental health called S-ketamine, is its technical name. Spravato is its name brand name. And it is an inferior molecule to ketamine. So I've even heard of some clinics that do nasal spray that they will do nasal spray of real ketamine, but bill for Spravato because it's included, because Spravato is about 30 to 40% as effective as the actual ketamine molecule because the molecule is different. I'm no expert on the medicine, so don't quote me on that stuff. But I do know about ketamine itself. I know less about Spravato. I know that the statistics are not great. I'm sort of guessing at the percentages, but I believe it's less than 50% as effective as regular generic ketamine. Could be up to 60% in some cases. That being said, it's also a nasal spray administration, and the different administrations as you kind of go up the list, meaning troches or lozenges, then nasal spray, then IM shot, which is a shot in the arm or two shots in the arm, 15 minutes apart to still make a 40-minute ketamine session, and then IV administration, an intravenous continual infusion. And you go up in sort of potency and bioavailability as you go through that list. So, for example, troches are about, I think it's 30% bioavailable. Nasal spray is about 50% bioavailable. IM shot is about 85% bioavailable, and intravenous is about 95 to 100% bioavailable. Again, I'm fudging those numbers because I'm not a statistics person. I apologize. But ballpark, those are kind of how it goes. And so when it comes to potency, we believe that IV ketamine is the most potent and therefore most biggest bang for your buck, if you will. That if you're going to pay for this treatment, ideal is to get the best, most bioavailable, most potent version and form of administration to try and make the most dynamic and most dramatic changes in your symptoms. That being said, all the research for IV ketamine, of course, when you're doing research, you have to standardize everything. And so the standardization for IV ketamine is to keep it at one dosage. That technically is proves that anything above the baseline therapeutic dose measurement of ketamine is going to do its job in terms of the brain development. That dose is 0.5 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. We start there, but we don't stay there. And many clinics will stay there. Many clinics will, especially if they are participating or doing longitudinal research, they are going to stay at 0.5 milligrams per kilogram forever for your entire life of treatment. We are looking for optimal patient outcomes and not necessarily restricted to the long-term research-based dosage. And so we are going to adjust based on patient experience. So we usually start at 0.5 milligrams per kilogram. We usually also add what we call a bolus dose or an induction dose, which is a little bit of a boost at the beginning of your infusion so that it doesn't take as long to sort of come up to that plateau of sort of that dream state that can be so helpful. We want to maximize your time at that plateau in that dream state. And so we want to kind of shorten the come up. We don't want to shoot you out of a cannon or anything like that. So, excuse me. So please don't misinterpret. But what we do want to do is make it last maybe 5 to 8 minutes instead of 10 to 20 minutes, so that then you only have 20 minutes at that sort of plateau. We want to maximize and give you at least a roughly 30 minutes at that plateau, because at that plateau is where most of that brain plasticity and brain development is happening. It's also where most of that interesting, dreamlike stuff is going on. From there, usually we find in our experience of running now thousands and thousands of sessions that people get acclimated to the ketamine. And so that newness rubs off. And so then from there, we usually go up very, very small incrementally based on how the patient is doing. Folks usually do have a sweet spot, so we don't just keep going up. It's often between about zero point 0.7 and zero point 0.9 milligrams per kilogram. But again, everybody's different. People metabolize faster, people metabolize slower, people have more intense, less intense sessions, etc. We're not chasing a psychedelic experience. I do want to be transparent about that. We're not chasing a psychedelic experience. Psychedelic is under the umbrella of dissociative. We do want a dissociative experience. Dissociation is, in this case, medical dissociation is emblematic of the brain doing its job. And dissociation, while psychedelic is under that umbrella, it's not necessarily exciting and flying with pink elephants. It is experiencing different realities than what you are currently in. So you stop feeling the chair, you start to feel like you're sliding around or like you're floating a little bit. Sometimes it's like a tune out and you're in a vast blackness, some different place. It's not the room that your treatment is in. You're still aware of the room, of where you actually are and where your treatment is, but you're not experiencing the details of that room anymore. You're not feeling the chair underneath you. You're not hearing the pump. You're not, certainly distractions will come in, but dissociation, evidence of dissociation is that you're seeing slightly swirling colors or vast blackness, or you're awash of big feelings, big thoughts. Things are passing through that are a different thing than feeling normal and sort of regular and everyday, just, sitting on a chair and having an IV. Do you know what I mean? So that's sort of the rundown. I am more than happy to answer any questions that you have, whether they be about what is ketamine like, how to explain it to your patients or your clients, if they are curious, if you are curious. I'm happy to also answer questions that are more in depth and detailed. If you already know quite a bit about ketamine, about what we do, about our processes and practices, you let me know. And I have recorded this so that I can share it after the fact with folks who weren't able to attend today. And in those cases, I will keep recording through questions so that those questions, if they are helpful, can be added. If you would like your questions removed, I can do that also for the recording. Or feel free to email me, feel free to text me, and I am happy to answer any questions at any time. Give me a little time because sometimes I'm running around doing a lot of things, but it is my absolute pleasure, truly, to talk about ketamine, to talk about, patient care, and to talk about this really remarkable treatment that we have found an incredible amount of benefit and positive results from. We have folks who, because of anonymity, don't necessarily leave public reviews on our, Google profile or something, but we do receive very regularly emails and messages about how great people are doing, how much of a difference this has made in their lives, how their family and loved ones notice such a drastic difference, how they wish they knew about this sooner, and they wish they had tried this sooner, and they wish that more people in their care team had known about it, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm also happy to share resources if you would like some articles or some books. We have some in the clinic. We also have some online. Please, please, please use me as a resource. Use Chris, our clinical director, as a resource. If you are ever in the area, please stop into our clinic. We love to show it off and show you around. Usually at these in-person info sessions, that's one of the things that we do is that after having some snacks and some drinks, lemonades and things, I'm in the conference room right now of our building, but we get to go upstairs and take a look around and see the rooms and see the facility. I want to put it out there that we also have these informative pamphlets that talk about the treatment, talk about our practices, etc. And if you would like to both drop off your own cards or pamphlets about treatments that you offer, we would welcome them. Just let us know and make sure you email me because if you would like to be added to my list of practitioners and providers, I ask you for a little blurb about your how you relate to ketamine. I ask, direct contact information, whether you prefer email or phone. And then also pick up some of these because we would love to have these available to your colleagues, to your collaborators, as well as your patients and clients. Any questions from those of you who are on the live session at the moment?
I guess I'm wondering about the follow-up. After the six initial sessions, how many people, what's the average follow-up? How many people continue with that and how often on average?
Terrific question. Thank you so much for bringing that up. I'm sorry I forgot to mention that. Yes, boosters or maintenance should be expected. Most people need some kind of maintenance. That's more of, I mean, we do have people who don't have very frequent maintenance, but especially for treatment expectations, we find that it is helpful for people to expect that they will need to come in every several weeks to several months. Like I said, some clinics will give you sort of a treatment plan that you do once every 3 weeks for 6 months, and then you graduate to once every 6 weeks for 6 months, and then we'll talk about it. Like I said, that's really, really expensive. That's usually that particular time frame is much more frequent than most people need. Some people do need every 3 to 4 weeks. I just want to put that out there that sometimes, especially folks for whom they have lived for a long time with really pretty intensive depression and anxiety symptoms. Plenty of people who've had a long history and long battle with depression do need more frequent maintenance. That being said, what we tend to tell patients in the consultation is that you could come every 4 to 6 weeks. You could come every 4 to 6 months. You could come seasonally. You could even be one of those special people who comes once a year and you feel okay. In general, though, in terms of managing expectations, we find it best to expect, especially early on, to anticipate that you'll need to come every 4 to 6 weeks. Because if you're expecting to come every 4 to 6 weeks, and then as you're checking in on yourself, you actually can go longer, that's a win. That's successful. That's fabulous. If you do the opposite and you expect, you know what, I'm going to be one of those special people who only has to come in once every 6 months, and then your system is telling you that you need to come back every 6 weeks, your symptoms are really coming back, and you really do need a booster, then it's really disappointing. If you're anticipating 3 months or 6 months and your system is saying, nope, it's going to be 6 weeks, then it feels like a failure. It feels like it didn't work. It feels really disappointing. So while it's incredibly flexible and really incredibly individual, that's how we sort of portray it so as to not overpromise that this is going to be great and you're going to be set for 3 years, but not to underdeliver, and make it within the patient's power and agency but also accessible and ideally not waiting too long. Because another thing that happens is that if someone is feeling symptoms return at, say, 6 weeks, but they're going, oh no, I can't do it right now. I have too much going on. And they wait another 6 weeks for 12 weeks, and then they're doing really bad. One session is no longer going to do enough. There is that sort of balance that if you wait too long, if you wait past the threshold where your symptoms are starting to come back and starting to let you know that you need sort of literally, that's why we call it a booster, a boost back up to that new normal, then you fall too far down, you're going to need more in terms of that incremental boost to get back up there. So in sometimes for folks who haven't been able to come in or they skip several weeks past when they want to come in, then sometimes they'll need to come in for 2 sessions or a short little series of 2 or 3 sessions or something like that. So unfortunately, there isn't a way to get away with stretching it too far when your system is giving you the signals of what your timing should be. That being said, we want to be here for you. We want to make things as doable as possible. And so we are starting to implement with this expansion. We're also starting to implement reaching out to folks several weeks and even several months after sessions so that we can remain a resource, not so that we are pushing or pressuring or badgering anybody into coming back in, but so that we are staying available and staying a resource so that people can ask, I am having this experience. Is that a signal that I should be coming back? Or we are just there so that they can say, yeah, actually, I'm still doing great. And we can respond with, that's fantastic to hear. We're so thrilled. Come back and see us not as a patient, but, come back and visit sometime. We'd love to say hello. Those kinds of follow-ups and feedback we're also working to implement as part of this expansion, as part of this revamp and 501(c)(3 and all of the fun and crazy developments that we've got going on. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Great. Thank
Yeah.
you for asking. I will say goodbye and invite you to come and visit us anytime and invite you to reach out and stay connected. And we would love to see and hear you more and be able to discuss.
Okay.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you for those of you who are here. I'm avoiding saying your names for the recording, but I really appreciate you being here. And thank you to everyone who will maybe potentially see this later, who weren't able to attend today. And if you are close to Sauk or Watertown, please come to one of our open houses. I believe those should be in the emails that you have gotten. If you haven't or you don't, then please let me know and I will forward those along. Thank you so, so much for being here. Thanks for sharing this time. Appreciate it.